Welcome back to the Investor Professor podcast. This is Dr. Ryan Peckham, and this is episode 137. Happy Memorial Day to all of you in the United States. And this week's big news story, of course, is going to be the Nvidia earnings. I do not think we really appreciate the time that we're living in with just all of these amazing companies. So we're going to get into that today, specifically Nvidia, talking about their earnings and also talking about all the other companies that it's going to impact. So get your mind right and let's get to work. Well, welcome back, everybody. Long weekend if you're in the United States. The market will be closed on Monday for Memorial Day. So let's just get in here. The market had, I'm recording this on Thursday, and the Dow Jones just had its worst day of the year, down 600 points. And one of the weird things about this day is that the Dow's down 600 points, and Nvidia was up $88, which is it's about 9.3%. It was up 10% most of the day. And so this huge disparity, worst day for the Dow, great day for Nvidia. So Nvidia reported earnings on Wednesday night after the close, and it was another great report from Nvidia. Their revenue, which is the amount of their sales, were up 260% over this time last year, which this time last year, they were just, nobody was really expecting it. And so Nvidia has again been able to just do a great job of execution, but also meeting the demand of the market. So with Nvidia going up this much, it's now at $1,037. And hit a high today of 1,063 was the high today. So obviously this stock is getting very expensive. There's a lot of investors who can't afford a stock that is $1,000 a share. And if they can't afford it, they can't afford enough to really make a difference in their portfolio. And so that's the trouble when you get these stocks that are starting to do so well. So one of the things Nvidia also announced is that they're going to do a 10-for-1 stock split, and that's going to happen the 1st of June, I believe June 6th or 7th. So when that happens, Nvidia stock, if it were to close today, it would go from $1,037 to $103. And so it's going to drop. Basically, you take whatever the closing price is of Nvidia that day and you divide it by 10, and that's what the stock's going to trade at. Now, the value of the company doesn't change. You know, there's no change in value when a company does a stock split, but psychologically there is a benefit. And you know, I'll listen to a lot of academics and I'll listen to a lot of finance people, and they say, "Oh, well, stock splits don't really matter. All the numbers stay the same, all those things." But to me, I disagree with that. I think when you make stocks where people can get into companies at a much more affordable level, they are more likely to be invested in your stock. So with Nvidia going down to around $100 a share, I think there will be more people that will want to invest in Nvidia because it's going to be more affordable. It's going to be more affordable for them to be a shareholder in that company. So I do think that is going to be an important development. And I really appreciate when companies do these kind of things, because I think long term it does matter. In the short term, it might not matter that much, but in the long term, I think it can have quite a bit of a difference. And so you look at that Nvidia quarter with as high as expectations are. I don't think that's the one thing for me when I look at this is the expectations were really high. Nobody thought Nvidia was going to have bad numbers. Nvidia, if you're wondering, here we are 5 minutes in. If you're wondering what Nvidia does, I should have started with that. Nvidia makes all the chips that are going to power generative AI. And so they are quite arguably the most important company in the world right now, because when you listen to the sales calls of Amazon, Microsoft, Meta, Oracle, just the list goes on and on and on. All of these companies, their plans for the next 2, 3, 5 years all depend on Nvidia's chips. And the even crazier thing, as good as the numbers of Nvidia look, they still they're not even selling their best product yet. So in September, they have a new chip coming out called Blackwell, which is like, seriously, Amazon, Tesla, all of the companies that we talk about on this show, they are in line to buy as many of those chips as they possibly can to power all of the AI stuff that they're developing. So when you look at it from that standpoint, you can easily argue that Nvidia right now sets as like one of the most, basically the most important company in the world, because all of the new technology is going to hinge off of their platform and their chips and their technology, and it's pretty amazing. And so when you look at this, obviously Nvidia gets the spotlight, well deserved, and that's what everybody talks about. But again, I know I've gone over this in other episodes, but I just want to reiterate it here, kind of do maybe a little mini episode on this. But it's not just Nvidia chips, it's what other industries and what other companies is this going to impact, and how can we go find good investments to basically piggyback off of Nvidia's success, right? So what are the industries? Who are the other companies that are going to help implement all of this new technology that is going to change our world in the next 10 to 20 years? And so when you look at that, there are companies like, we've talked about ASML in the Netherlands, which makes the machines that manufactures the chips. There is Lam Research. Their symbol is LRCX. There is Taiwan Semiconductor. There is, I thought it was interesting, NVIDIA CEO Jensen Huang actually basically gave a shout out to Tesla and Elon Musk and said that they were far ahead in self-driving technology. And again, Elon Musk is going to be buying as many chips as possible to help, get that going faster. And then obviously for his new company. But there's smaller companies like Dell Computers. So Dell Computers, you might be wondering why, Dell and NVIDIA would be linked. Well, back in the early days when NVIDIA was starting out, now everybody talks about them being, AI related, but used to, it just was all the gaming chips, right? If you wanted to be a gamer on a computer, you wanted NVIDIA graphic cards and all that kind of stuff. And Dell was a big buyer of those. Dell was selling a lot of computers. Well, now when somebody buys NVIDIA's chips and they want to run AI, Dell is who they're using to build out the mainframe and install a lot of these things, a lot of the components. And then it's also NVIDIA when you look at their data centers. That's the other piece that's really driving this. Their data centers contributed to 90% of the company's overall sales, which is where most of the AI revenue is actually being recorded, is in the data center sales. And so they're selling those GPUs in there. And again, when people look at NVIDIA's chart, they think about how far it's gone up. And it is. When you look at their chart, it's absolutely ridiculous. And I'm not saying you should go out and buy this. I'm not saying you should go invest in it. You make your own, do your own research. I'm not your financial advisor, all that kind of good stuff. But when you look at this and you look at, the market is always forward looking, right? Looking at what is the amount of money that's going to be coming in the future. And the market is looking at NVIDIA and the number of orders they have. They're listening to the conference calls of all these other companies, the Amazons, the Microsofts, all of those conference calls where they specifically mention NVIDIA and the amount of money they're going to be spending on this stuff. Go listen to Meta's conference call. It's one of the reasons why Meta is down was when Zuckerberg was talking about how much money they were going to be spending on this stuff. But you go listen to those conference calls and you'll see a lot of them, all their money is going to be driven to NVIDIA. So they're the ones who are sitting basically in the big chair right now, if you will. And their market cap is expensive. They just crossed 2.55 trillion. Still not as much as Microsoft. Microsoft's at 3.17 trillion. Let's see where Apple is today. Apple's at 2.86 trillion. So I guess it's interesting that I'm just saying trillion like that's a normal thing. Yeah, I mean, Nvidia is bigger than Amazon. I think so that right now the largest companies in the world goes Microsoft and then Apple and then Nvidia. I mean, it's pretty amazing. And I think that, I think about just the time we're living in, and you look back and people are like, oh, I wish I lived in the time of Andrew Carnegie or Rockefeller or whatever. I mean, these are the modern day versions of that. And so these kind of investments and these kind of investment themes and kind of getting this tailwind behind you, this just does not happen on a normal basis. And I think that is the reason that I'm spending so much time talking about this, is because these kinds of companies and these kinds of trends do not just happen every single year, every single week. And so for me, I'm excited. I've dealt with this a lot. Obviously, I teach a lot of students and we go over these companies in class. And a lot of times, like Amazon was $2,000 a share. Apple was $700 a share. All these companies were, large amounts. Google the same way, doing the stock splits, helped a lot of these companies. So, I'm excited about Nvidia doing this. And of course, they say they want more investors to be involved. And I know that there's some companies out there that'll do partial shares and all those kind of things. But when the company splits its stock, does a 10-for-1 stock split, it really does open it to a wider audience, people who feel like they can buy a meaningful number of shares where it's actually going to make a difference in their portfolio, and for you to be able to really take advantage of this time that we're living in and be able to kind of get behind this. So it doesn't mean that it's going to continue to go straight up. It doesn't mean that you should jump on it as soon as it goes up $88 in a day. But, these kind of companies should be on your watch list, looking for how can you profit and how can you improve your portfolio with some of these names, because they're going to be around for a while. And this is where technology is going, and not just technology, but this is where the money is flowing. So in investing, one of the kind of the old adages is follow the money. Where's the money going? So there's always somebody making money somewhere, as Jim Cramer says. There's always somebody making money somewhere. You just got to find it, right? So follow the money. So when you look at all the technology companies, where they pushing their funds, this is where they're pushing it. It's the same thing. If the government passes a big infrastructure bill, you'll see everybody goes into United Rentals and Caterpillar and those kind of companies. So really taking the opportunity to look and see what kind of exposure you have to these companies is a big deal. And for right now, Nvidia really doesn't have a lot of competition. We can say AMD, and AMD is a very good company. They started out well today. They started out well. A lot of these companies, Dell had a good day. A lot of these companies had a good day, and then the market just kind of sold off, and they all sold off because of that. The reason the market sold off is because, of course, inflation fears. We get another number which says that inflation is sticky. So now everybody's expecting them not to lower rates in September. So that gets priced in, and the market drops. And so we just cannot get off the inflation Ferris wheel. We are just all on this Ferris wheel for what seems like forever. But don't let that dissuade you from good technology, good companies, good solid companies that have good balance sheets that are going to be able to weather not only inflation, but other things that come the market's way. So if you have time this weekend, go look up NVIDIA's quarter, go look at some of these other companies, look at your portfolio, look at the companies that you want to be invested in. If this is one you want to be invested in, then, when it splits, you can buy some shares, and then depending on what happens, you can, add to it and all those kind of things later. But there's a lot of kind of talk out there about, can Nvidia go higher? All of these things. Stocks can always go higher. Of course, they can always go lower, but the theme is there. It's not about the stock prices and can the stock go up. Is the theme still intact? Is the reason that you invested in this company, is that reason still there? And so when you look at Nvidia and you look at that quarter and you look at them growing 260% over this time last year, when this time last year was pretty spectacular, you look at that and you go, the theme is in place. And so in between the quarters, though, you could get election stuff, bad news on, the TV, or bad news on the internet saying that these companies aren't doing as well. But then all of a sudden they report their numbers. They back up the thesis and say, not only did we do well, we actually did better than you thought we would, which is the case with Nvidia. They actually did about 5 to 6% better than the expectations were, which is why you see the big jump in the stock today. But the momentum is there. And even on a bad day, Nvidia, they're pulling a lot of money from a lot of other places, from investors trying to get in on this trend. And so we'll see. But again, take a look at it, see what you think. But I wanted to draw attention to this, and not just looking at Nvidia, but go do the research, go look at the other companies that are going to be impacted by this, that are going to benefit, even though they're not Nvidia. There's going to be a lot of companies that are going to benefit. And so we're probably going to talk about this a lot more, but it's because it is a story worth talking about. This is where you can really expand your wealth and make a big difference in your personal portfolio and your personal wealth and the growth of your funds. So I hope this has been helpful for you. Don't mistake activity for achievement, and I'll see you next time. Thanks, everybody.